It's the Harman Kardon Neo. Harman Kardon is JBL doing things right. A lot of you do like JBL, and there's a lot of us who think maybe they're just trying to squeeze a little bit more out of us than they really should. But Harman Kardon, it's the upmarket arm of JBL, therefore it's all good. Everything you get is good. And my last video was about the Onyx Studio 6. Incredible deep bass, albeit it's got a tiny, tiny little battery. And we're a bit disappointed about that. But maybe Harman Kardon know what they're doing. Someone pointed out they've got a micro size Harman Kardon. They call it the Neo. The Soundcore have a speaker that's huge. They call it the Neo. Obviously not the same Neo. This is the Harman Kardon Neo. We could say Harman Kardon Micro. And that would give us a clue where we are. Because I've got other micro speakers, haven't I? I've got the Bose Soundlink Micro, another JBL type company, Bose. If we can charge it and they pay it, we'll carry on charging it. And then we've got Tribit, come from China. We're going to do a lot of value. We're going to take on the big boys, and we're going to show you that maybe you don't have to charge us quite as much as you do currently. So someone said, why don't you compare the Neo? I like the name. It looked like the same type of speaker. And that's basically where I am. I'm comparing Harman Kardon Neo with the Tribit Stormbox Micro, the Bose Soundlink Micro. I'm going to say right off the bat, I have tinkered with my Samsung S10 Plus. There was an issue with some speakers. It wasn't giving me maximum volume. I've had to go over some of the settings. This video will be a little bit different from my original Bose Micro versus Stormbox Micro, where they're basically about even Stevens. They both went a little bit louder, which surprised me, and warmer, a bit more clinical. They both did a good job. In this one, the Tribit Stormbox, for whatever reason, and it may be the settings I've had to change in my phone, is going a bit louder than it did originally. Now, one clue is when I had this speaker, if I changed the volume, but I wasn't playing actual music via this micro speaker at the time, that setting didn't stick. So there may be some issue that the settings have overcome within this particular speaker. It's not that, all your speaker reviews, it was a load of cod's wallet because you've changed the volume. No, there's only a couple of speakers where it's made much difference. And the Tribit Stormbox Micro is the one that's made the most difference. And I'm saying, clearly there was an issue with this speaker because now, when I change the volume, even if the music's not playing through this speaker, the volume level sticks. So something in the settings I've changed has gelled with this speaker, and it's now going louder. Just wanted to put that out there because I know I'm going to get swamped in the comments otherwise saying, it was different. You did it before and it's different now. Yes, I'm putting my hands up and I'm telling you, I'm being open and honest about it, and I'm saying that's what's happened, and that's why there'll be a difference. Let's get on with it. I said this is about the Harman Kardon Neo. About the specs, as far as I can see, came out March 2020. It's only 31 quid. So, how else do they compare? It's by far the cheapest. Oh, but hang on a sec. Look at the battery, 3.7 watt hours compared to 9.6 watt hours. And we didn't really get great battery life out of it before. 10.6 watt hours. You've got to remember, it's not just about the battery. It's about the battery and how loud it goes and how much bass it's got. That's what's going to decide how much actual battery life you get. Of course, they are all SBC codecs. Now, what has surprised me? Harman Kardon, we do it well. Only came out last year. Bluetooth 4.2. What's that all about? We've got Bluetooth 5 on the Tribit. It is 4.2, but on the very old now Soundlink Micro, stereo pairing is okay on all of them, except you can't pair a pair of them in stereo. The Harman Kardon Neo, but we do get USB-C connections on them, but not on the older Bose Soundlink Micro. Auxiliary on the Bose Soundlink Micro and on the Harman Kardon Neo, but not, unfortunately, on the Stormbox Micro. And they can all be used as a phone speaker. Now, I didn't really take this in before. I thought this would be a good comparison. It's 3 watts, rated at 3 watts. We've got 9 watts on the Stormbox Micro, 7.5 watts. So there's your clues why it's cheaper. We're talking 3 watts. We're not talking a lot of amp power. in terms of weight, 251 grams, 290 grams Tribit, 290 grams again the Soundlink Micro. Look, they've clearly designed this to go head to head with the Micro. This is not exactly the same sort of form factor. It's thinner, but it's bigger, well, you know, in terms of surface area. So they've not really knocked anyone else off. You can say that for them. It is the only one of these that if you drop in water, it floats. They are all IPX7, so they're all rated to go into 1 meter of water for 30 minutes. But only the Harman Kardon Neo will float, and it will float with the drivers up. So it will actually float on top of the pool, and you can still play it. The other two will sink. So they all have a woofer, they all have a passive rad. And actually I think we've got two passive rads, haven't we, in the Stormbox Micro and in the Bose Soundlink Micro. Now, of interest, latency, Bluetooth latency. Now, here's the thing. When I measured this on YouTube, 33 milliseconds is the best I've ever measured. When I played local files, disappointingly, it was not quite. It was okay, 80 milliseconds, so it averaged out at 60 milliseconds. But of course, there's two-way communication going on with these Bluetooth speakers. Obviously, it's playing well with YouTube, but not with my MX player that I'm using for playing local files. So, plays well on my phone with YouTube, but your experience may be different depending on what exactly you're streaming. Just to say, it came in a well-designed box. You know, it does say upmarket on the box. We did get a USB-C connection there, a cable, and we did get, you know, quick start manual because it's so complicated. There's so many different settings, isn't there? Well, no, there isn't. What we've got is the power button and the Bluetooth button. On the bottom, we do have that, incredibly, an auxiliary input, whoa-ho, and we've got the USB-C input. Then we've got your play buttons, pause buttons, your volume up, your volume down. Now, you're not going to be able to play it like that. Clearly designed to either play flat and then take advantage of the surface area that it's on, just to fill out that bass a bit. And then we got this, you know, this strap. But it's not designed in the same way as this really handy strap on both the Tribit and the Bose Micro, because you can take it off and then reattach it so that it's actually over something. Whereas you can pull that apart, but it's not quite this, because that will sit firmly. Look, if I stab around your fingers, that's sitting firmly. This is never going to sit firmly. So if that bit is over your handlebar, if it's on a bike or something, it's still doing that. What's that all about? So sometimes it's style over functionality with some of these, especially the upmarket design, where it's about, oh, it's got to look nice, because people just seem to think, oh, well, if it see it there, people say it looks nice, and that's good enough. We really want to know how they sound. Come on, Al. We want to know how they sound. So first thing I'm going to do is show you the frequency response measurements of the three of them compared. The Harman Kardon Neo, Stormbox Micro, Bose Micro. First thing you're going to notice, Harman Kardon Neo. There's not a lot going on in the bass, is there? I've got a line down there, 150 hertz. We normally call that upper bass, but we're already rolling off. We're measured at 45 degrees on the Harman Kardon. Outside of that, you'd have to say, wow, that's pretty linear, pretty flat. But it's almost like the bass was forgotten about. As you can see, lower volumes, a little bit more bass. So some bass adjustment going on. Not by much, but there is some thought going on to volume scales, rolling off by the time, of course, you hit maximum volume. And we do have a lot of peaks and troughs. But that bass, 150 hertz, it may be rolling off, but it is still extending out into the deeper bass. The Neo is just a complete roll-off. The Bose Soundlink Micro, it does extend further into the higher range, but it's doing it at the cost of, there's a gap here, around 200 hertz to about 2 kilohertz. That's your lower mids, your mids, and that's quite a trough there. But the bass, it does look bigger and rounded compared to the other two speakers. But again, big roll-off at maximum volume. You notice Tribit Stormbox Micro appears to have a lot more volume than the Bose Micro, while the Harman Kardon Neo is nice and flat, but at the cost of bass. So, yeah, I realised after I bought it, it's actually only 3 watts. That ain't looking good in the frequency response in terms of having some bass, but it is Harman Kardon, and frequency response measurements don't always translate well into the real world. 50% volume, and I have to tell you, 50% volume on these speakers is proper low volume. that's someone talking loudly will swallow the sound. Bear that in mind when you replay it through your speakers.
Alban, Chela, Yasniel, Navarro, Marvin. Latino, 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 Latino. ¡Móntala, coño!
Ponte a bailar reggaetón con mumba, mezclala y tira un paso de zumba. Una matata, timón y pumba, salta y rebota que el bass retumba. Así que móntala, que las nenas están bien así cala. Sin cariño a la pista, ve rómpela, que después sin culito te quedarás.
Dale bebé, ven baila y goza, ven dalo todo, préndete todo, siente este ritmo que te provoca, te lleva al cielo y te vuelve loca. No te detengas, ponla bien dura, rompe la pista con tu locura. Tú estás bien buena, tú estás bien dura, tú eres latina, dale cintura. Latino, 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 latino.
¡Móntala, coño!
Sandunga, fuego, 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 reggaetón con mumba, métele de nuevo, métele cintura, mami ponle gana, tú eres de las duras. Dale bebé, ven baila y goza, ven dalo todo, préndete todo, siente este ritmo que te provoca, te lleva al cielo y te vuelve loca. No te detengas, ponla bien dura, rompe la pista con tu locura. Tú estás bien buena, tú estás bien dura, tú eres latina, dale cintura. Latino, 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 latino.
¡Móntala, coño!
Bear in mind, I said these are low volumes, very low volumes. And that's the thing, because when I heard Harman Kardon Neo, I had huge expectations because it looked nice. It's almost like a leather. Well, I imagine that's fake leather look strap, but you know, the box it's come in is nice. But yeah, 31 quid, but man, sounds like my passive radiator's come away or something, because there's literally no bass. Now, I've got to say, in the specs, it says 130 hertz to 20 kilohertz. 130 hertz, well, you still get some upper bass, but it's basically telling you, we ain't going to bother with the bass. And actually, I was, when I heard that, I was staggered by how much little I was getting out of this speaker. In terms of bass, because at the end of the day, it does have a passive radiator. And I'm saying that because at lower volumes is where you want even more bass. You want your bass adjustment at low volumes, where our ears are the least sensitive to the deep bass, or even any bass when it comes to that. So you're really gonna, look, that's pretty linear in the mids and the highs. It's gonna hang well with speech, but when it comes to music, if you're listening to any sort of bass heavy tracks, you got a real problem. So not good at 50%. The Bose does sound off to me. Now, when I compare it to my newfound Tribit Stormbox Micro, the bass is there, it's quite rounded, but the dip you get in the mids and the lower mids is just too much. It's too much in the sense that it now does sound off. So the most balanced of all of these three, the one that does sound the best listen at 50% is the Tribit Stormbox Micro. So now I want to listen at proper volumes where you could kind of annoy someone who wasn't too far off. And of course, you would have noticed as well, I must say, I'm recording everything at 45 degrees. Why? Well, because although technically you could have that standing and you could have that hanging from a tree and it would be on axis, it's going to be something between on axis and lying flat where you'd get the best bass out of them. If I'm going to have to record it, it's something that's fair to all of them because they're going to be tuned differently depending on how they expect you to listen. 45-degree angle is the fairest way of doing it, so around 75% volume.
Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who's gonna save me? 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who's gonna save me? 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who's gonna save me? 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna
You don't need me to tell you, there is no bass on the Harman Kardon Neo. Not much to say. Compare that to the Stormbox Micro, around the 90 Hz mark, just like someone had an eraser button when they were coming up with the frequency response on the Neo. And the Tribit Stormbox Micro, not quite the 90 Hz peak of the Bose Micro, but it does hold its own into deeper bass. If we can say that with these sort of speakers, holds its own upper bass. As I've pointed out before, lots of peaks and troughs on the Stormbox Micro. Very evident when you look at that high end into the harmonics, especially that 13 kilohertz dip in between a couple of peaks. Compare that to the Bose Micro, where it's much more linear into that high end. So bear in mind, these are now real world listening volumes. And now, I would say there's nothing between the Stormbox and the Soundlink, because it's just a matter of your taste. I do prefer, actually now, the Bose, because it's a warmer sound, a fuller sound, whereas this is a tighter sound and it's a more clinical sound. You may hear more details because of that. They both have bass, but in a different area. So we've got a bit more lower bass, but a bit more of the mid bass. But I think I can't say at these proper listening volumes, one is better than the other. I think it's a matter of taste, and I would say I personally prefer the warmer sound of the Bose. I think on the whole, most comments are you guys prefer the Tribit, but it's just going to be a matter of taste and what kind of music you listen to. So ultimately, we know we're throwing the Harman Kardon away. Simply doesn't have enough bass Because if you're already looking at these speakers, that's only 40 quid. You know, that's robbing your back pocket money, but that's a proper value. And that's like not much, 40 quid, 31 quid, and that's going to differ depending on the deal you're going to get. Makes no sense, does it, now, in this company against the Tribit, the Harman Kardon Neo. So anyway, maybe it's going to pull out all the stops for maximum volume.
Nothing but it never ever changes, just like that. It's always whatever anyway, every time we try to talk, I am out of here any day. It's always something, no, it never ever changes, just like that. I get the shivers whenever I'm thinking about you. Just wanna leave and live without you. Be on my own again. I get the shivers whenever you go out of line, yeah. I feel it creeping down my spine, yeah. Wanna be alone see your face, I can feel it coming back. These shivers are every day. Whoa, I say it's over, I get out of bed and leave, yeah. Just like that, I got the shivers whenever I would think about you. Now that I left, I live without you. I'm on my own again. I got the shivers whenever you went out of line, yeah. Now it's like everything is fine, yeah. Cause now I'm alone again.
So the Tribit Stormbox Micro ultimately has more headroom, and holds on to more bass. Some 10 dB up by 60 Hz, albeit a rolled off 60 Hz on the Bose Soundlink Micro, but even upper bass is a little bit more heavy on the Stormbox Micro. It's closer at 80 Hz, but it's still advantage to the Micro, and the Tribit Stormbox Micro quite strong into upper mids, the high end, up to around 9 kHz, which is helping with clarity as well, although it does fall away rapidly after that. But on these sort of speakers, you're not really going to hear those differences. And the Harman Kardon Neo, not much to say other than well outclassed by the Tribit and the Bose. So clearly, maximum volume, only one winner. That's Tribit Stormbox Micro. It's a different result from my original Bose versus Tribit video. As I said, I'm telling you why. There's something specific about this speaker, but when I changed the settings, it gelled well. And the standout point to make was there was a problem setting the volume. I could only get the volume to stick if I adjusted it while music was playing. Now I can adjust it when no music is playing and the volume sticks. So something has changed, whether it's the phone or the speaker, something's come loose, I don't know. But while they are even, you know, kind of highish, listen, 70%, 75%, they are even, and it's one or the other, and I do prefer the Bose. You have to say, because it's a better listen at low volume, and it's a better listen at maximum volume, and it's half the price at least of the Bose, it's the clear winner. Doesn't mean to say it's going to be the one you prefer. If you prefer a warmer sound and you play at reasonable volumes, you may still prefer the Bose. One thing I can say for sure, you're not going to prefer the Harman Kardon unless not the difference of £9 is going to make or break the deal. It isn't even such a nice form factor. The only thing you can say, of course, was it floats with the driver up. So if you want to float it in your bath, that's going to work. These are going to sink and you won't be able to play them, and then it will work, and then it will be the winner. But in terms of audio, that is not a winner. So I was disappointed, but I didn't really take in the specs before I bought it. Someone had mentioned comparing against these speakers, and I thought, yeah, it's Harman Kardon, isn't it? They're gonna give us something special, and they haven't. I realised when I started this video, this should be up against the JBL Go 3. My next video will be Harman Kardon Neo. Looks great. Can looks overcome the functionality of the which actually the JBL Go 3 looks quite nice. It's quite a dinky little thing. However, that's going to be my next video. Hope you got something out of this video, and I thank you for watching.